Welcome to my video series on the heroine's journey. I'm Susanna Liller, and it's time to find your happiness. I'm going to do things a little bit different in this video. I'm going to share my screen and share a presentation I was asked to do in my community here in Maine. I was asked to share what I was doing with heroines and why I was meeting with them in my community in Bath, Maine, once a month and giving courses and workshops and what was going on. So I put this presentation together to show people. And now I'm going to show it to you. So let me share my screen. Women are rising. This is the bottom line of what I'm doing now is I am helping women see what they are about, clarify their purpose in the world, their purpose for themselves, who they are really, and bring that forward. The heroine's journey starts with a call that gets them to make a leap into the unknown. To go on an adventure, though it might not seem like a fun adventure necessarily, but they leave their ordinary life, they leave the known and go into the unknown. And it can be a rocky road full of surprises, good and bad. But they also find themselves through all that, through the thick and the thin, they find who they are at their very core. So this talk is about some of my own calls, so you understand how I got here. My own calls about leaping into the unknown. And it's about another call that came to me in January of this year, which is still in process. And maybe even you can get back to me and give me some help with that one. But first, call number one. It all began with the ruby slippers. And you know, the ones that Dorothy had on her feet when the tornado picked up her house, took her into Oz, and landed her on top of one of the wicked witches. And there were her feet sticking out from under the house. And there were the ruby slippers that Glinda, the good witch, gave to Dorothy, but didn't explain to her, left out an important detail, didn't explain how to use them. So in 1994, I was doing organizational consulting, organizational development consulting. It was my full-time job, and it kept me very busy, and luckily it paid the bills. And that's how I learned more about women and how they needed women at the top layers of organizations, actually every layer, but mostly the women who were working to lead their organizations, and how they needed help with their confidence and self-esteem. I was surprised. I would put out a survey initially and get them so I could get to know them a bit before we started working together. And I'd say, what would I be surprised to know about you? And so many women would say, I lack confidence. I lack self-esteem. So I started a side gig in 2000. I began to work with women, inviting them to think about how they wanted to create a life for themselves that was more about what they wanted than what other people wanted for them, the culture, the business, their friends, their parents, what they wanted. And I called it Attracting the Life You Want. And it was very much based on my work in organizations with strategic planning, because that was all about, in 3 years, what do you want this business to be? Imagining what it could be like in 3 years. So I did this with women. And what was so interesting was that, and I sure it's because women have so much natural intuition, something else, which I identified as their intuition, was coming up and answering that question. What do you want your life to be like in 3 years? So they would be surprised sometimes, often. They would be, an idea would come up, you should quit. You should clean out your house. You should ask for a raise, things that really they hadn't planned to ask for. And from this process, they were able to create plans and follow those plans. And I would tell my participants that their intuition was like Dorothy's slippers, something she always had on her feet, which could always get her to where she wanted to go, though she didn't know to use that, which we don't often know to use our intuition. But it's just like you have that intuition with you all the time, and all you have to do, maybe not click your heels, but tune into your inner voice. I got my second call in 2007, and I got it literally as a call, and figuratively it was a call to go on a journey. I learned why the symbol of the slippers was so magnetic to women, and why Dorothy's story was relatable. And I went to hear, a friend of mine called me, said, you have to come and hear Sally Landsberg, who is going to talk about how Joseph Campbell's hero's journey can be related to the Wizard of Oz and Dorothy. And what I saw that night in that darkened auditorium was a pattern that had been there all along in the literature, which I loved the most. And now I knew I loved it so much. And it was in what I had been teaching, that there was a path. And here was Dorothy illustrating it all along, this path of the hero's journey, what Campbell called it, but I modified it for the women that I was working with. And I also shortened it, made it more accessible. I wanted, the women I worked with were busy. I wanted to capture their attention and imagination. I wanted them to use what I had learned, to use this path and how it could get them to where they wanted to go with their life, with their work. So what is it? It is a pattern, and it's an archetype. It exists in our collective unconscious because it's been with us for so long, this way to tell stories. And it's found in stories and films today, and way back in Homer's time, the Iliad and the Odyssey, Beowulf. It's that same theme, same pattern of, and if an ordinary person starts out, gets called to do something, and answering that call goes on a journey and is transformed by that journey, which helps that person and helps his civilization, everyone around him. Joseph Campbell is a teacher, a professor at Sarah Lawrence College. He wrote many books, but his classic is The Hero with a Thousand Faces. He really came into popular culture in 1988 in the PBS series that he did with Bill Moyer. And his work is something that I have learned a lot from. But then there's the heroine, the woman who doesn't really identify with the name hero. I believe every woman is a heroine, and that she's more important than she realizes, that she needs to be enlightened about the journey and what it can do for her, and this path she doesn't even know she's on. And if you know you're on it, it can really help you get through all the challenges and the adventure. My definition from my book, You Are a Heroine. A heroine is a woman who dares to be herself, has stuck out her neck and has taken risks, big or small. Doesn't mean you have to do a big, huge, accomplishment. She is a woman who's willing to leap and stretch herself, not always stay in her comfort zone. Coming out of her comfort zone on a regular basis to try new things, to challenge herself, to do what she has to do, even if it scares her, even if it scares her a lot. These are the milestones, and Joseph Campbell had more. He probably had double this amount. But these are the ones, kind of the major ones, that you start out in ordinary life. You're kicking around doing what you usually do. And for Dorothy, that was living in Kansas. And the call comes, and it can come from without, like the tornado came from without for Dorothy. But most often it comes from inside, an inner urge to do something different, to make a change. And then you respond to the call. And if you do, you cross an imaginary threshold and go on a journey. And you will meet what's called threshold guardians, which are like, you've probably heard about the critic and the gremlins. They're warning you, trying to get you to be safe. And are you sure you can do this? And you're not smart enough, pretty enough, young enough. All that stuff is expected when you do something out of your comfort zone. So don't let it stop you. You're on the road of adventure. Good things happen, bad things happen. You can run into brick walls. You can end up sitting on the side of the road for a while, not knowing what to do. You have people that come to help you, people that come to get in your way, all kinds of challenges which make you and mold you into a fuller, stronger, braver heroine. The belly of the whale. Sometimes this comes up where you feel like the rug has been pulled out from underneath you, that you've been shaken, turned upside down. And this is so that you can be birthed into something new and a new iteration of yourself. If you were just marching merrily along and never ran into the winged monkeys or the trees that throw apples at you, then you wouldn't be challenged and you wouldn't turn into the next more empowered version of yourself, which is the purpose of the journey. Dragons are deep-seated fears that often get established in you in childhood, and they can be really scary. But heroines get to know, welcome their dragons. I want to know what you're about. What is it you have to tell me? And they can come up on a journey when they're kind of ready to come up, they come up. Gifts received is what you, after you've been on the journey, you look back and, thank goodness I did that. It was really hard, but look what I learned. Look at who I am today as a result. And then you cross an imaginary return threshold. You're basically done with that journey. And the freedom to live is about, I feel more like myself. I can be myself. There's a freedom in that. I've let go of some fears and some limitations, and I can be free. Here's a map that I created. It's sort of, you can see, there can be a lot of circles in your journey, but here's where it starts. Here's ordinary life. You're kind of sleeping. You don't know about this fabulous journey that's there for you if you answer a call. So here's the call. But then all these things are threshold guardians sending you back. I refuse the call. I'm not ready. Back here, I get, oh no, back to your comfort zone. I want to go back to Kansas. You're not smart enough. You're going to fall. All different ways to kind of throw you off. But the heroine persists. She persists. And sometimes it's a leap to cross the threshold over what seems like an abyss. But here you go. Oh, threshold guardian there. You're being selfish, just thinking of yourself. You cross the threshold and you're on a venture road. And here's one of those whales that you might enter so you could be created anew And there are good things that happen, mentors, angels appear, but also those threshold guardians, and sometimes a dragon. And the dragon, again, can be something you latched on and you believe is true about yourself, and it really isn't. And you can find a way out of that. You receive gifts, and then you go on the return threshold, and then you're free to live, but then you start over, but you're higher up than where you started. You can never go back. You're more empowered, actualized, confident. This is how we evolve. So I do this for 15 years, and I just don't stop talking about it. My enthusiasm carries me into writing a book, doing a podcast, all these things I've listed here, blog, newsletters, online course, which is in my school for real life heroines, webinars. Initially, I did a blog talk radio show. Even during the pandemic, it did not stop. And the pandemic was a gift for me because I had time to create this online school for real life heroines. And the core piece of it is taking everything I'd ever learned since my first workshop in 2000 to help women be more empowered, everything I'd ever done, put it into this course, online course called Your Epic Journey of Transformation. But then January 2022, I got invited to be part of a online virtual seminar on the sacred feminine. My friend Blanca Vergara, we both went to the same coaching school, the Hudson Institute of Coaching in Santa Barbara. And she asked me to be on this panel. Different people were interviewed, such as Jean Shinoda Bolen, Dr. Bolen, who wrote Goddesses in Every Woman and 13 other books. Anne Baring wrote The Dream of the Cosmos about goddesses, several other books. Johann de Quillen wrote The Gospel of the Beloved Companion. My point being, these are prominent women who've really made an impact in the world for the betterment of women. And then what's up with this? Me? So I was getting another call, though at the time I really didn't realize it. You know, sometimes you don't realize it. You have to look back, and that's when you see. But I realized that it was something to do with the sacred feminine. Here I had been a part of this, and yes, I understand that the heroine's journey has a lot to do with bringing out the sacred feminine within you. But I needed to learn. So I just said at the beginning of this year, I'm going to go on a stay-at-home pilgrimage. I'm going to read. I'm going to try to figure out what is this thing that's called the sacred feminine. I was hearing so much about it. Also, it's called the eternal feminine, the divine feminine. So I've been doing that, and I've been writing about it, and I've been speaking about it in these videos. So where am I at this point? And this would lead you to believe that I'm kind of lost in a maze. And yeah, I'm still working my way through. But remember, heroines persist. So I keep working at it. And I've received breadcrumbs that have been helping me. What have I learned? I've learned that it refers to energy, sacred feminine, that exists within and without us, which is a energy that's softer, more nurturing, intuitive, empowered. It's an aspect of the divine power that connects and binds the earth together. It's often associated with fertility, creativity, intuition, the moon. It can be looked at as we look at yin energy, at the yin and the yang being the masculine. And I kept learning it is the counterpoint to the divine masculine. And of course, there's a divine masculine, and they have to be balanced. And when they are in harmony, then that's where we want them to be. Things that are in balance in beauty and knowledge, but we're not there and it's not balanced. There's way more divine masculine out there than divine feminine. So we tend to be disconnected from that feminine energy and everything that it encompasses. And that makes us shut down our sacred feminine voice and lose sight of that aspect. Somebody said, and I kind of liked it, that the sacred feminine's the river, the flowing of the river, and the sacred masculine, it's more the structure that makes up the banks. So again, I'm still working on all this, but my working definition is it means valuing the innate worth of a woman's mind, body, and soul, as well as appreciating the feminine qualities in the male character, because of course it's not gendered. There's masculine and feminine in each of us, male and female. So this point, I want to make a little story here about Susan and the horses. And what happens to us is that the masculine energy, the patriarchy that has been prominent in our culture for thousands of years, has determined the route that we need to take. And these are the things, these are the kinds of jobs that would be good to have. And we sort of get molded and pushed into them. And Susan was a woman that I coached, and I had come to her company to work with her because she was very unhappy about the person that she had to work with, who was her boss. And he was a young man, younger than she was, not as much experience as her, but he had been promoted above her, and it was causing a lot of friction. And as what happens when you coach somebody and you have a lot of conversations, you get to know them, they feel more comfortable with you. And at some point, she said to me, "You know, Susanna, this is a good job. I get paid a lot of money. There's great benefits. There are good people here, but I don't even want to be here. What I've always wanted was to work with horses. But my father said I had to get a real job. He wanted me to be an engineer." So this is what happens so often, and I see it when I meet with women. There is something inside of them that brings them alive. They have a fire that maybe is smoldering inside, but it has been tamped down because that's not the way we do things. Because the calls that people get to connect with whatever their own unique gift is, like Susan, that the horses working with them was always calling to her. The heroine's journey, learning about it, knowing the pattern, allows your form of sacred feminine to rise and flow into the world, what you have to offer. It's very individual. But just imagine if we could amass for all women the calls and have them respond, the energy that would be produced would be so powerful. So each awakening in each woman, as they travel through the journey, brings the sacred feminine forward. So the way I can see what I'm doing contributes to more sacred feminine in the world is I'm encouraging each woman to learn about the journey, which helps you bring your gifts forward. And when the heroine, you'll remember, gets to the end of the journey, they share their gifts. And here is how it ripples out. It helps everybody. And we are here to contribute, to share our gifts. So what I've seen is women who immerse themselves in this pattern and how their lives fit. If they can see their life through the lens of the journey, they get a clarity around why they're here and what they're here to do. And they uncover their light. It's not just smoldering in there, it's out. And that's their personal contribution to the sacred feminine. And a shared gift, a shared story sends out ripples, as I've said. And the sacred feminine gets to be out more in the world, balancing with the sacred masculine. There's a part of you, I tell people, that knows exactly who you are and what your gift is. And I call that your inner acorn, because the acorn, there's no question that it's going to be the mighty oak. Nobody says inner acorn or to an acorn, maybe you want to be an apple tree, or did you try the path of the willow tree? No, it's I'm on the acorn path. So that there's a place inside of you where you have that knowing, where your mind, heart, and hands are all in sync, and where they are doing what their inner acorn into your inner acorn intended. And I believe that this is important, that if you connect to that inside first, then go out into the world and fight whatever fight you want to do, or create whatever you want to create, and do the external work. But first, get congruent on the inside. I believe all of this answering the call and going on the journey stuff is all part of a much larger whole. So here I was feeling like, okay, this is about your intuition and consulting your intuition, and like the ruby slippers, and figure out where you want to be in 3 years. But then I learned about, in my second call, oh my gosh, there's a path. It's called the Heroines journey. And if you know about the markers, it'll really help you. And I started teaching this. And as I was teaching this, I realized that this helped women unleash their sacred feminine, because they got to know who they truly are, and they had the courage and the connection with other women to bring it forward. So that's why I say women are rising, because I see it happening every time I work with the women that I work with. And this is why I know I'm compelled to learn more about the sacred feminine, because this is what's happening. It's coming out more and more into the world. The more we share and tell our journey stories to each other, because it's stirring in all of us and we have to let it out. And it's going to bring balance back to our planet, which is so greatly needed. It's part of what's going on. It's not balanced. I feel like Martha Graham said it all in this wonderful quote of hers, that there is a vitality, a life force, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And there is only one of you in all time. This expression is unique, and if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium and be lost. The world will not have it. And it's not your business to determine how good it is, as much as we like to judge ourselves, not how it compares with other expressions. It is your business to keep it yours clearly and directly, to keep the channel open. You do not even have to believe in yourself or your work, though the heroine's journey helps you do that. You have to keep open and aware directly to the urges that motivate you. Keep the channel open. So thank you for joining me and listening to my presentation. I would love to hear from you and hear what you think. I would guess that you too have seen that women are rising, that this sacred feminine is coming out. I bet you're hearing those words: sacred feminine, eternal feminine, divine feminine, more, just like me, thinking, wow, I need to learn more. So I'm continuing to learn, and I'll keep sharing what I learn with you. But thank you for tuning in and watching this, and I hope that you will join me for my next video. Okay.